Hi, Dragons. My name's Nathan Evans, and this is Patrick Ambron, and our company is called Brand Yourself. We're seeking a £100,000 investment in exchange for a 1% equity stake in our business.
All right, so we're starting strong here with a £10 million valuation. So because they asked for £100,000 for only 1% of the company's equity, this means that the company was valued at £10 million. So the market value of their company, as they claim to be, is £10 million, which is obviously incredibly high. So it might be a tech company, they usually attract quite high valuations. And as a reminder, valuations are usually done by independent accountants, right? So they come in and they adopt one or more different strategies to value the company. There's many methods to value a company. You should know that it isn't set in stone. A valuation isn't just a mathematical formula that spits out the exact value of a company. There's many components that go into valuing the company. In this case, it sounds like their accountants or their, third-party independent accountants valued their company at £10 million. Let's see what it's all about.
Dragons, meet Steve. Steve is an Oxbridge graduate with a first-class degree. Basically, Steve is an employer's dream. But when employers look Steve up online, they don't find professional Steve. They find gap year Steve, where one moment has ruined dozens of job opportunities for him.
I love this already. So you see that they didn't start with describing what the company does yet. They started with a story. And this is the best way. So if you're about to talk to someone, or if you want to pitch an investment raise for your company, I would suggest don't start with saying, hi, this is my company, this is what the company does. Start with a story and start with a problem. In this case, they're bringing an example of, Steve, a candidate who might be the absolute perfect person for a job interview. But if someone looks them up online, they will find Steve, at a frat party or whatever. And so we don't know what the company does yet, but we're intrigued. We immediately understand what the issue is here for sure. And that's how you capture people's attentions. You start with the problem and you start with the story, and then you lead on to how this company will resolve this problem.
Now, as Steve found out the hard way, how you look online today directly impacts your career.
Yeah.
More and more employers are analyzing everything about you before making a decision. That means a single negative online search result or single inappropriate social media post or image can ruin your career. That's what.
So we have a story and we have a problem, a pain point. And this is something that people should connect with. You should present the issue as something that people are absolutely familiar with, as we all are. We're always at this day and age kind of concerned of what people will find on the internet if they Google our name. This is something that is very easy to connect to, and they're doing a fantastic job in just presenting, the pain point, the issue. It's very, very clear what they're doing here.
Why we created Brand Yourself, the most comprehensive platform that helps individuals clean up, protect, and improve how they look online. Now, while your initial report is free, users upgrade to a £70 yearly subscription to get full access to all of our features.
Last year, our revenue was over 4 million. And this year, we're on pace to do over 5.
Great. So we're already understanding a little bit more about what their business model. So this will be a one-off free scan of your online presence. And then after that, you will pay a yearly subscription of £70. So this means that this business model guarantees recurring income, right? So it's not like a one-off payment that people make and then you will have to always find new users. The users, if they enjoy the service, they will continue paying you every single year for the service. And then they also told us about revenue. So the previous year, they made 4 million, and then the following year, they made 5. So that's an increase of 1 million over 1 year. So that is a 25% increase of turnover. Now, we know that turnover is only one small slice of the cake. Turnover is a synonym for sales. So how much money you have received in exchange of selling your product or service, that is the turnover. Those are the sales, the revenue. Of course, it's great if the revenue is high, but also we have to know how much you're spending on your business and what the profits are, both the gross profit and the net profit. Remember that the gross profit is the difference between the turnover, so the sales, and how much it cost you to make that service or to make that product. And the net profit is the difference between the gross profit and the company's overheads, which are the company's running costs, such as rent, salaries, utilities, and so on and so forth.
You're going to get screened, and these screens are way more than just a search. They go through everything.
So all it does is advise you any negative things on Google. Is that what it does?
You have a negative search result, and it's not something you can delete because it's not your own Facebook. And it's someone else trashing you. It shows up in Google. For example, I think at least in the US, we've dealt with more victims of revenge porn than any other company.
That is such a good point. That is such a good point, that not only it can be good for, job candidates, but it can also be good for anyone who doesn't want any of their personal images being online. I would ask what the company would do with the data that it captures when it's looking for you. Maybe I would ask a question about that. I know very little about the tech space, but I would be concerned about privacy and data collection. So what does the company do with the data that it collects about its users?
What if I just came off social media to get all together? I'll just delete Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. I have no footprint on social media.
So there's one thing which is not having anything negative, but more and more employers are looking for positive things that reinforce their decision online. So
I agree. I think that nowadays, it's becoming potentially a reality that not having any presence online is almost seen as something bad, or, it would be almost suspicious if you had absolutely zero social media anywhere, especially if you're a high profile person. And actually, I recently heard an interview from Maya Hawke, who is Uma Thurman's and Ethan Hawke's daughter. She is an actor as well. And she spoke recently about, directors in Hollywood looking up subscriber count for all, the main stars of their movies to make decisions about who's going to be cast. And so nowadays, I would say that it's impractical at the very least not to have a social presence online. And I would also argue that it would be a shame for you not to have access to any social media just from the fear of having, a picture of yourself that you don't want, right? So I think this is a really good service that they're offering. It's a really good business if what they're offering is to just clean up what's out there about you.
It looks like you've got a business. You've turned over 4 million.
it was 4.4 million last year.
And what was the gross profit?
It was 2 million.
Net profit?
Is a loss of 450,000.
I should say something there. It is quite normal for young companies who are scaling up to have a loss in their first few years. Usually you would have, investors or personal funds from the company's directors put into the company. And especially with these tech companies, it's very, very difficult to create and grow a tech company without an initial investment, right? Because the product needs, or the service needs to be ready and usable before you're able to sell it. And so it is quite normal for tech companies to have losses in their first few years of operations because the upfront costs are so much higher than how much turnover you're able to raise in those first few years.
And at the moment, you're trying to raise 1%. Which values the company at 10 million?
Yes. This is a part of a larger raise that we're putting together this year of about £3 million.
Right. But you've done your homework about me, haven't you?
I have. I know you don't get out of bed for 1%.
Yeah. So I'm assuming that if I want to invest, you'll accommodate.
We're here to make a deal.
Yeah.
So Tuka is already telling them that he's going to negotiate. Tuka is saying, if you want me on board, and if you want me to invest 100K in your business, you're going to have to give me more than 1% of the company shares. And the owners are saying, yeah, we know. Just make your offer and we'll see.
I'm interested. So there's an equivalent of Dragon's Den in the US. Why didn't you go to them? It's called Shark Tank over there, isn't it?
We did appear on Shark Tank, and we got a $2 million offer, but we just couldn't negotiate. So I walked away from the deal. In retrospect, I didn't know that there was extra value in having a shark than there was the money.
So what he's saying is he might have regretted the decision to not take the investment from a shark. You might know that over in the US, Shark Tank it has a very similar format to Dragon's Den, where entrepreneurs, make a pitch for very experienced entrepreneurs and investors to come on board. And so, the value of having investors is not just the money. There might be other ways for you to get the cash. You can look into, business loans, or you can get into like a whole other host of options to get the money. But the specific, great thing about having investors is that you can choose who's on board, and you can choose someone whose connections and interests and experience can really help elevate the company.
We need to make sure we learn from that mistake. I don't want to be seen as someone who goes on a show like this and does the same thing. So what we wanted to do is act drastically different this time around.
So he's already promised that if he receives an offer, he will accept. This is a great way to present yourself to people. He has acknowledged his mistake in the past. He has said, you know, he found a way to say, I regret not taking up the offer that the shark make. I'm not going to make that mistake again. So if I will reassure you that if you make an offer to me today, I will probably accept it, you know, unless it's an awful offer. So I think this is a very great way to communicate that you are a likable person, that you change your mind, you accept, you know, that you may fail, that you accept that you may get things wrong, and then you do your best to turn that around and then fix it going forward. These are all characteristics that investors look for when they are willing to spend their own hard-earned money into a brand new startup.
Me and my co-founders
No, just you, just picking you, the founder.
10%.
And Nathan, what do you own?
It's less than 2%.
So I guess this is important because this means that the two founders, even combined, don't own even half of the company, right? If we say that all the shares are 100% and one of them owns 10% and the other one owns less than 2%, it means that the two of them combined have only 12% of the company's shares ownership. And so this means that they might not be able to make decisions on behalf of the entire board, right? Because depending on how many shares you have more or less ownerships or votes towards certain decisions that you might take at top level. Certainly negotiating for a new fundraise definitely includes that. So it's good that, you know, the rest of the shareholders know what they're doing and agree about them being on the Dragon's Den.
Where it doesn't work for me is I don't like being a small fish in a huge pond. I like to make a difference. And I just feel that with this tiny, tiny sliver of equity, that's not for me. So I wish you all the best and I'm out.
Yeah, so her point is that she only wants to invest in companies where, again, she can make a dent, where she has enough ownership of the shares and of the company to be able to really make a difference.
What if I said to you, I'll give you 1,000 square feet free of charge for 12 months in the West End of London if you give me 10% of the business?
That's quite a push. So that would be that one of the owners would have as many shares as Tuka would have, as big a slice of the company as Tuka would have. So that is quite a push, and that's 10 times as much as they initially offered. So they offered to give 1% in exchange for 100K, and Tuka wants 10%. So obviously that's 10 times as much. They might push back, I would think.
I'll give you all the money, but I want 4%.
Okay, 4% might be doable.
Thank you. Thanks.
So I am going to make you an offer. And I'm going to offer you all of the money. And I want 3% of the business.
So that's a better offer than Tuka.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So Deborah is asking for 1% less than Tuka is asking for the same amount of money, but Tuka is also offering 12 months worth of office space. So that's also to be considered.
Guys, you've been very transparent, which is really good. And I think the development that you've got going on is very interesting as well. So I too am going to make you an offer. £100,000, all of the money for 3%.
Same as Deborah.
I'm actually going to make you an offer. And I'm going to offer you all of the money for 2.5% of the equity.
All right. So Peter is usually a dragon that doesn't cut down. Like, he clearly really wants this deal because he has made so far the best offer. So Tuka wanted 4% for the same amount of money plus 12 months worth of office space. Then we have the other two who offered 3%. And so Peter is now offering 2.5% for the same amount of money. Let's see who they're going to choose. They might even offer to have two dragons on board. So maybe if they're saying we're going to offer 3% and then one dragon gets 1.5 and the other gets 1.5, something like that. So that would be a great way to call on board more than one person who has the kind of experience and contacts and skills that they're after. They might decide to do that. Let's have a look.
So firstly, thank you very much for hearing us out, and thank you for the offers. Peter gave us the most generous offer, so I'd like to put a counter forward to yourself. would you be prepared to provide us with the 100,000, but in exchange for 2% of the business?
Is that offer open to other dragons, or is it just to Peter?
At this stage, it's an open offer.
If it was open to other dragons, I wouldn't accept it.
Okay.
So I'm going to ask you, what would you like to do?
If you accepted the offer, I think we'd be ready to accept that right now.
Absolutely.
Okay. I would accept 2%. But the most important thing for me is on the next fundraise, I'm not diluting.
So what Peter is saying here is that if the company is going to raise any more investments in the future from, new investors, he still wants to keep 2% of the company. He doesn't want that as a consequence of a new fundraise that he's going to own less. He still wants to be able to own 2% going forward, even with new funds being raised.
I'm prepared to accept that deal.
Yeah?
Oh, wow. I think so.
Great. Well done.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Fantastic.
Thank you very much.
I'm gutted and delighted at the same time.
Thank you for all the
I am really happy for these two guys. I think they are amazing storytellers. They had a really great business idea. They came across as really likable and prepared, and I think their business has a lot of potential. So I'm really glad that they got Peter on board, and I'd be curious to know where they are at the moment. Let's see if I can quickly Google them and see. Yeah, so they're still ongoing, aren't they? The number doesn't look like a British number, so maybe they have their bases somewhere else. However, yeah, it looks like they're still operating. They call themselves Improve Your Online Reputation, Protect Your Online Privacy. Sounds like they're still up and running. Let's see if they have an about page. There we go. About us. Yeah, it looks like they're up and running. Here's the founder doing an intro video. Yeah, love it. Good for them. Good for them. And there you have it. If you enjoyed this Dragon Den reaction videos, let me know in the comments. Let me know what you thought about this business, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.